Hi, welcome. This is Tom Stone. This video is about how to become one of the best coaches in the world. Now, how is it that I have some authority to talk about that? Well, back in the year 2000, I met a guy named Thomas Leonard. He was the founder of the International Coach Federation, which is the main organization that certifies life coaches. He was also the founder of Coachville and Coach U, which were two large coach training companies at that time. And he had for 10 years not had his own personal coach. He was looking for somebody who was like 10 steps ahead of him, and he hadn't found anybody in all that time. So when I met him, I had and still haven't had, I have never had any coach training. But when I met him and showed him what I do, he was so impressed with it that within a week, he hired me as his coach. And that was pretty cool because then I was the coach of the coach of the coaches. And this, him talking to his very large audience about what it is that I was doing and that he had hired me as his coach, launched me into kind of an instant fame within the coaching world. And I've been helping people become really superb coaches ever since. So what I'm going to explain to you is laid out in a bit of a PowerPoint. So I'm going to do a screen share and bring up the PowerPoint so that I just can follow the points that I want to give you in a coordinated way. So I'm going to just do that. So, how to become one of the best coaches in the world. Let's see if we can get this to work. There we go. So, when I was working with Thomas, in the first coaching session we had, we at that time, most people were having half-hour phone coaching sessions, but we had set up to have 1-hour coaching sessions per week for 3 weeks. And then I was living in San Diego. He was living in the Phoenix area, Scottsdale, I think. And he flew to San Diego and we had an in-person session once a month. And after our first session, a couple of weeks later, we were on the call, one of our maybe second or third coaching call, and he described an experience he had with a large group of people at a seminar he was giving. And he told them that he has listened to thousands of coaching sessions. And in our first coaching session, and remember, this is me with having no coach training whatsoever. In our first coaching session, he said, I made only one mistake. He said, most coaches make about 20 mistakes on average in a half-hour coaching call. So in an hour coaching call, I only made one mistake. And he said, I immediately caught it and corrected myself. So he was blown away by that. And he shared it with this group. He also promoted me, very nice that he promoted one of my seminars, and it just filled up a massive group of people to learn what it was that this Tom Stone guy had. So he also said that I have an understanding of the dynamics of people's conditioning, again, more than anyone else that he'd ever met. So anyway, what happened was when we had our conversation about what makes great coaching, we came to the agreement that great coaching doesn't come from learning and mastering coaching techniques. It comes from being a great person. Great coaching comes from great people. So up until now, it's not been easy to become a great person. Now, if you look at yourself, you know inside you that you have greatness. And you also know that you're not really expressing it at the level that you would like to be. You can sense that you have a whole lot more to do and to give than is coming out of you. So how can you awaken that latent potential and truly become the great person that you actually are because you have that greatness latent inside of you. Very successful people in business, government, science, entertainment, they all say that the key to their success was that they trusted and acted on their intuition. Here's what a few of them say. Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. Steve Jobs, founder of Apple Computer. You may have seen that one before. It's pretty popular. Follow your instincts. That's where true wisdom manifests itself. That was from Oprah Winfrey, who pretty much everybody knows, a famous talk show host. The only real valuable thing is intuition. That's from Albert Einstein. But while these people can follow their own intuition, they don't offer much guidance in how you can follow yours more consistently. Let's do a little reality check. If you sometimes get an intuition and for some reason you don't follow it, then it turns out to be spot on and you really wish you had trusted it and acted on it. And what I'd like to do is to have, if you have experienced that, to have you put a little Y in the chat section so I can just see who has that kind of experience. So just click on chat. Yeah. Yes, Tonya. Stacy, yeah. Angela, yeah. Angela sent directly to me, but she says yes as well. Yeah, Veronica, basically everybody on the call, we just have a small group because I announced this just so recently. But thank you. Yeah, this is so common. Okay, I'm gonna close the chat and come back to the screen share. Where is it here? Yeah. So the deal is, your intuition is the voice of your inner greatness. And think about it. What if you could have trusted and acted on your intuition every one of those times that you didn't? What kind of impact would that have had on your life? And what if you could recognize, trust, and act on your intuition every single time you got it in the future? What if you could develop that ability quickly? What would that do to your life and to your coaching? It would make you a great person and a great coach. If that were actually possible to do, and you'd like to do that, then again, please put a Y in the chat section. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, again, basically everybody. And that's exactly what the people who are on this call are learning to do. These participants are in my Extraordinary Coach Training Program, which is our method of turning people into great people and great coaches. And I'll tell you more about that later on. Right now, I want to explain to you about what isn't working and why. So we'll close the chat again. Come back to the screen share. There we go. So thanks for the good interactivity. So it would make it, let's see, let's go here. Well, it is possible. And I'm going to explain to you exactly how you can do that. In order to understand how to vastly improve your intuition, you need to understand how your decisions are influenced. You have 4 types of thoughts that influence your decisions, and they are practical thoughts, intuitive thoughts, ego-based thoughts, and emotional pain-based thoughts. Now, the practical thoughts, what you do about them is when you have them, you just sense the right timing and the right action, if there's anything to do, and then you do them. For intuitive thoughts, you need to recognize them and then take action if it's appropriate to take action. Sometimes you have an intuition about something and you don't have to do anything, and that expression of whatever it was you had the intuition about just shows up, just manifests by itself. That happens sometimes. So ego-based thoughts, you use what we call the out technique typically, and emotional pain-based thoughts, we use what's called the in technique. And I'm going to explain those to you as we go along. So the useful thoughts that support success are the practical and intuitive ones. And the not useful ones that cause costly mistakes are the ego-based ones and the emotional pain-based ones. To what extent do each of these kinds of thoughts affect your decisions? How can we tell? Well, we have a special method that's called intuition testing. And I'm going to show you what that's like. Let's stop the share and show you. Intuition testing is a way of being able to access the innate wisdom that's in our body. We have a direct experience of something with our body, not with our mind. So for example, if you had a bowl of strawberries, but you had never tasted a strawberry in your life, so you didn't know what a strawberry tastes like, and somebody has this bowl and they're about to give it to you, and you say, well, what does a strawberry taste like? And they try to explain it to you. And so they say, oh, it's sweet, it's juicy, it's got these little seeds, sometimes they get stuck in your teeth, and it's delicious, and you should try it. So you haven't ever tasted a strawberry before. Does this explanation give you the taste of a strawberry? Absolutely not. You have to actually take a bite. Once you directly experience it with your body and your senses, then you know what a strawberry tastes like, but not before. This means the body and direct experience of things with our senses is what brings us true knowing about things. So you take a bite of the strawberry and say, oh, now I see what you're talking about. So when we want to know something, we have this method called intuition testing. And the intuition testing is a process of comparing our direct experience through the body with our intellectual understanding or description of what it is that we're interested in. So the way it works is the muscles of the body can respond to whether there's a match between the mind and the body. It's like a coherence, a congruence, or whether there's a mismatch. Okay? If there's a mismatch, the muscle goes weak. If there's a match, then the muscle goes strong. Now, when you do this in person with a client, you do it with their arm. You have them say something like they say, my name is Tom, and then you push on their arm and they attempt to not have you push them down. And you get a strong response. That means, my name is Tom. I've been called Tom thousands of times. So if we test for something that's not congruent, if, for example, I say, my name is Lucy, and I press, and then my arm goes weak, the muscle doesn't contract. Now, it could go either way, but we choose to do it this particular way, that strong is yes, weak is no. And that way, everybody is doing this IGO work, does it in a consistent way. So when you do the muscle test, you're comparing the mental or intellectual concept with the experiential aspect of it that's in the body. And as I say, if we have a match, we get a strong response. If there's no match, we get a weak response. So in order to test your level of how much each of the different 4 kinds of thoughts is influencing you, I have to use a version of the muscle testing that is possible to do from a distance. Okay? And that is to use the fingers rather than the arm, because obviously if we're not together, you can't use your arm. So the test goes like this. We bend the thumb so that it's got a little bit of a angle to it. And we embed the tip of the finger right into the pad of the thumb. And then we push against the thumb to see if we can open it up like that. If it's a strong response, the muscles in the thumb stay strong and we can't push the finger out. If it's a weak response, then this releases and it goes like that. So this is strong, this is weak. So if I say my name is Tom, test myself, I'm good. My name is Lucy, no. My name is Veronica, no. My name is Stacy, no. Yeah, none of you guys. Okay, so this is how we test. So when I'm doing when I'm doing a decision influences assessment, which is what we use to quantify to what extent each of the 4 different kinds of thoughts is influencing your decisions. I'm going to go back on the screen share and show you. Okay, so here's an example of a decision influences assessment, or DIA as we call it for short. Now, on the left, you see decisions are influenced by, and then it is a column, and we have the 4 different kinds of thoughts: practical, intuitive, ego-based, and emotional pain-based. The next column, it says optimal. The ideal situation is that our decisions are influenced 100% by practical thoughts and 100% by intuitive thoughts, and 0 for ego-based and 0 for emotionally pain-based thoughts. Now you can see in this example, this is from some client or seminar participant or something from 10-18-18, and testing for them, they had 85 for practical thoughts. Now this is typical, sometimes even higher, up in the 90s. Most people have lots and lots of practical thoughts. Practical thoughts don't have any emotional charge to them. They're just practical. And so that's not a problem. When we have them, we just figure out if we need to take any action, and then if we do, we do it. Intuitive thoughts, also when they're at 100%, that's the optimal situation. If we could be following our intuition all the time, OMG, our life would be dramatically different. Okay. However, most people have an initial number when we do the first decision influence assessment for them that's typically in the teens, like this one is 16. Occasionally it'll get up into the 20s, sometimes it's even down below the teen, like in the single digits. Okay? So what that means is your intuitive thoughts are not having the kind of influence on your decisions that people like Steve Jobs and Oprah Winfrey and Albert Einstein are having. Okay? Yeah, we'd like to change that and join that group of that kind of level of successful people. And the key to doing that is to remove the influences of the ego-based thoughts and emotional pain-based thoughts. I mean, look at these, 48 for ego-based thoughts. That means 40, these all don't add up to 100%, by the way. These are just numbers that express that there is a certain degree of influence that these kind of thoughts have on your decisions. So when the ego-based thoughts are high like this, 48, that means so much of the time you're having ego-based thoughts, not even recognizing that you're having them. Yeah. And these impact your decisions, and they always lead to costly mistakes. They never lead to success. Same with emotional pain-based thoughts. When they're reasonably high, like this is 38, this means that many of the thoughts you have that are influencing your decisions are coming out of emotional pain. And what both of these kinds of thoughts create thoughts that are made up in your mind. They don't actually exist anywhere. The only ones that exist that are on here are the practical and intuitive ones. The intuitive ones are what I call remembering the future. This is like sensing something that's coming, and in fact, it is coming. And that's why when you don't follow it and it ends up showing up, that's why it's such a bummer, because you really wish you would have followed it. Okay, so this is an example of the decision influences assessment. And what we're going to do now, here's a blank form where we can do a demo. Now, rather than switch back and forth many times between the screen sharing and not screen sharing, I'm going to stop the screen sharing. And then if there's one of you who could just do me the favor of writing down these 4 numbers that we're going to have. Anybody can do that? Somebody can do that. Stacy, okay. Yeah, great. Thanks, Stacy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test for somebody, and we're going to determine their decision influence assessment numbers. Okay. Who'd like to be the volunteer for me doing that? I know some of you who've been doing this work for a while, this would not be your first DIA, but this would be like along the way of your progress to see how you're doing. So who's up for my doing the testing for you? Veronique, how about you? That okay? You may have stepped away. Anybody else?
I am still here.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So okay with you, this will give you an update actually. You can see
Okay.
how much better you're doing from when we did the first one. Huh?
Right.
Okay, that'll be great. So for the practical thoughts, these are quite high typically for everyone, and for you that's also true. So this is in the 90s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 96.
Oh, wow, a lot.
You're a practical person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
agree.
Yeah. And so the intuitive thoughts one is now in the teens, in the 20s, 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 28. Okay, 28. So that's probably considerably higher than when you first started.
Mhm.
You can look back and see. So then the next one is the ego-based thoughts, and that is 20, 30, 40, 31, 2, 3, 4, 34. And that's very likely down from what it was initially. Typically, you've been working them down. And then the last one, the emotional pain-based thoughts, is in the 20s. Yeah, in the 20s, 21, 2, 3, 4, 24. Also probably down from what you had originally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So that gives us a little progress report for you. And that's great to be able to do that from time to time, every 3, 6 months or whatever, you can do it, and you can see how you're progressing towards getting the ego and emotionally pain-based thoughts down to 0. And getting what happens when you do that, by the way, is that naturally the intuitive thoughts go up, the practical thoughts go up. You don't have very far to go with practical thoughts, but the intuitive thoughts go way up. Yeah. Okay. So that is the decision influences assessment. And I was going to do a couple demos, but that's sufficient, I think. You get the idea. So why is it that we accumulate ego and emotionally pain-based thoughts? What happens when we're very, very young is we all get emotionally overwhelmed many, many times. Nobody likes it, everybody hates it, and everybody rapidly learns to suppress their emotions in order to try to get as far away from being emotionally overwhelmed as possible. Now, this causes us to not complete our emotional experiences because they're just too much for us to process at the time they happen. So we kind of archive some of it, like with the idea that, oh, maybe I'll get to it later. But we don't get to it later because we continue to be living in this habit of suppressing our emotions and staying away from where the emotional pain is uncomfortable. The reason that this happens, there's actually a scientific reason for it. And that is, we all have what are called spindle cells. And spindle cells are cells in the frontal lobe that are used for processing the experience of emotions. And this particular graph shows 2 brains. The one at the top is the brain of a 71-year-old man. And the red areas that you can see, right? You can see that? It's okay? You can turn your mic off and say yes.
Yes.
Great, good. Just want to make sure. So The red areas are the areas where the spindle cells are. And the lower chart is the brain of a, let's see, how old is it? Yeah. Brain of a 7-month-old toddler, little baby. And notice that the number of spindle cells in the adult, the 71-year-old man, we got like over 47,670 something on the right hemisphere, and 35,185 in the left hemisphere. So if we go down to the baby, we can see only 7,000, looks like 915 in the left and 5,680 on the right. So this means that when we're little, we don't have the hardware to process these emotions as much as we would like to. And so as we grow up, we get more and more and more spindle cells. But even though we have more hardware, so to speak, for processing emotional experiences, we don't have access to it that well because of this deep conditioning of suppression and avoidance. And this next chart shows a graphic of that. So when we're little, we have limited capacity to feel, and we also don't use it all. And when we become an adult, we have enormous capacity to feel. It's like plugging, terabytes of RAM into our emotional processing motherboard. But you can see from the small red block down at the bottom on the right, we're not using it. It's underutilized. It's latent potential, but we never use it because of the conditioning. So we accumulate unresolved disruptive emotions. And there are two kinds of disruptive emotions. There are ones called traumatic and another category called reactive. And they're energetically charged, and they cause sensations in and around our body. Now, there are two different kinds of energy patterns. Each kind has its own type of sensation. Let's look at the types of emotions model. Here it is. So as you can see, there are two categories. They're useful emotions and they're unresolved or not useful emotions. And on the useful emotions side, you can see that those are energizing, empowering. These are emotions like love, compassion, happiness, joy. Even fear can be useful. It's not necessarily pleasant, but it's useful. If we're about to step out on the street and one of these new Tesla cars is coming and you can't hear it because it's just an electric engine, and all of a sudden it's right there and you just sort of jump back, that's a good version of fear, useful version of fear, because it's keeping you safe. On the other hand, most of the emotions that we have are actually not useful. And the not useful ones are disruptive and depleting. And there are two categories, as I was just saying on the previous slide, there are two categories of them. They're what are called painful or internal emotions. And those are traumatic. Those are emotional pain, heartbreak, resentment, grief, the list goes on and on. And as you can see from the little image at the right of the circle, there's a kind of red dot around the solar plexus area. And these painful internal emotions have a quality of being like a tight knot or ball of energy held inside. And they tend to be localized like that. Now, the other type of emotional energy pattern is the reactive or external emotions. And there are two subcategories of that. We have upsets. For example, when we have an expectation that things should happen in a certain way, and they don't happen that way, then we tend to get upset. We get angry or disappointed. If it goes on a long time, we get frustrated and sad or depressed. The other subcategory is fear. If we project the possibility of a negative outcome onto the future, in other words, we're concerned that something bad might happen, but we're making up this story in our mind, this creates fear, worry, anxiety, panic attacks, and so on. So at the basis of these types of emotions, there's often trauma at the basis of them. So sometimes you have both painful internal traumatic energies and reactive energies, both what we call, and the names of the techniques that we use for resolving those are the in and out techniques. So we accumulate the unresolved disruptive emotions. Yeah, I've already mentioned this. So you've been having all four kinds of these thoughts every day for your whole life. And you haven't fully known that some are useful and some cause costly mistakes. You haven't been distinguishing which kind of thought each thought is. And you also haven't known that thoughts have both content and energy. Even if you did know which kind of thought you were having, you haven't known that there are disruptive emotions at the basis of your ego and emotionally pain-based thoughts. And even if you knew that there are disruptive emotions at the basis of some of your thoughts, you haven't known that it is possible to find and get rid of those influences or how to do that. So we've already been over the chart. So what I'd like to do next is to take you through the experience of what's called pure awareness. This is the experience of awareness being aware of awareness. Now, most of the time, you use your awareness to experience things. And so most people are not familiar with experiencing awareness itself unless they've been fortunate to learn some effective, good process of meditation that actually brings them that kind of experience. So what I'd like to do is to walk you through a simple little technique we call the Quietness Technique, so that you can experience your own awareness just by itself, just for a few moments. Because when you experience it, you won't stay in that state for a long time, because other thoughts will come along and kind of disrupt the quietness. So we call this the Quietness Technique. And if you'd like to experience it, then follow along. I'll give you the instructions. So thoughts occur in your mind like clouds occur in the sky on a partly cloudy day. This is a nice analogy, it's very helpful. So if we look up at the sky on a partly cloudy day, we can see the clouds and we can see the sky. And the way you see the sky is you simply look off to the side of the clouds and there it is. It's in the background all the time. Similarly, our thoughts occur in a background of silence. The thoughts are like the clouds. The background of silence is like the sky. And so the way we experience the background of silence is we just look off to the side of the thought and there it is. Like the sky, it's always there. The awareness is always there in the background and it's silent, it's quiet, it's empty. It has to be, as if it was filled with other experiences. We wouldn't be able to experience our thoughts or whatever the next thing we wanted to experience is. So when you close your eyes and you notice your thoughts and you look off to the side of them and you simply notice the silent background in which the thoughts are occurring, then you have this sense of experiencing your own awareness. It's your awareness being aware of awareness. Now, what are the qualities of that silent background? Obviously, it's quiet, it's peaceful, it's expansive, it's kind of limitless, there's no boundaries to it. And were there any problems there? I don't think so. Awareness being aware of awareness is a problem-free state. In fact, it's the only problem-free state, because in order to have a problem, you have to have juxtaposition of different things. You have to have some conflict between one thing and something else. So there are no conflicts, there are no doubts. And how would it be? How would you like to have that expansive, peaceful feeling always present in your life? I won't bother to have you put yes, because I know you'll all put a why. So what is it that prevents us from living with pure awareness present all the time? And it's your disruptive, depleting emotions. Okay? It's those things we had on the types of emotions chart, the in and out technique energies that are stored in or project out around your body. So when you thoroughly resolve your disruptive emotions, you naturally live in pure awareness all the time. Then you think, act, and make decisions that are always perfectly aligned with what it is that's naturally right for you. And you stop suffering from the bad decisions that caused by your disruptive emotions that are creating the costly mistakes in your life. So the solution to this problem is something called the freedom practice. So in order to truly function from your inner greatness, you need to be able to consistently act on your intuition and practical thoughts, intuitive and practical thoughts, and to recognize and resolve the basis of any thoughts that are coming from your ego or emotions, and not act on those thoughts, but resolve the causes of them immediately. And we have a program for doing exactly that. It's called the freedom practice. The purpose of the freedom practice is to cultivate that ability. In the freedom practice, you learn the basics of exactly what to do to become a great person. What we're after is having the fullest possible expression of your inner greatness. And when you're there, your DIA then looks like this. And I have the date on there as tomorrow. So if you really work at it, maybe you'll takes a little while to clean up your inner emotional landscape. So it's probably not likely that you're going to have a DIA like this tomorrow, but that's the direction we're headed. And that's what the freedom practice is all about, is about recognizing and resolving the energies at the basis of your ego-based thoughts and emotional pain-based thoughts. Now, when those things are gone, you end up in a state that we could call the 12 freedoms. And if you look at the central three ovals, these are the three most basic aspects of you. And when your emotional inner landscape is cleaned up, you have consistent clarity. You simply know things because you can easily be present to and experience everything. And you have this feeling of being whole and complete. In addition, each of these three central qualities of living in that state have three expressions, three basic expressions. So on the clarity side, you have a sense of inner stability. You have the feeling that you're really present, living in the moment, and you have a very lovely state of peace of mind. No anger, no disappointment, no frustration, none of that stuff. No fears, worries. It's fantastic. On the right side, when you feel whole and complete, you feel self-sufficient. You have great adaptability. You're not attached to things. And you can express your inner greatness in the most powerful ways. At the bottom here, we have knowing, and that expresses itself as successful actions, which are coming from your intuition, seeing things as they are, rather than being judgmental about yourself or others, and being fully present, not needing to self-medicate with various drugs or behaviors in order to avoid feeling your emotional pain. That's the basis of all addictions, by the way, is the feeling of the need to self-medicate to avoid feeling the pain. So the problems are not in our hardware. What we need to do is to upgrade your inner human software operating system, because emotional suppression is not emotional competence. Everyone is taught to suppress their emotions. And, in corporations, they say, leave your emotions at the door. In the military, people are taught to suppress their emotions. And in most households around the world, your parents are deeply conditioned to suppress their emotions. And so they just demonstrate that in their life. And you learn it just by osmosis, just by being around them and seeing it happen. And so emotional competence is not very common in the world. We live basically in an emotionally incompetent world. So let's check it out. I want you to take each of these questions and just answer them quietly within yourself. and let's see how you're doing. So do you consistently trust and act on your intuition? We already found out that's the answer is no. Do you get nervous or afraid to speak in public? Do you sometimes get anxious? Have you experienced heartbreak or grief? Do you get upset when things don't go the way you want? When trying to get people to agree with you, are you sometimes afraid of being rejected? Salespeople have that a lot. When you reach a goal, how long does the feeling of fulfillment last? Not very long. Do you have a major project pending that isn't getting done? This is also very common when your emotional competence level is not optimal. So following your intuition leads to success. And what I'd like to do now is to give some demonstrations and show you exactly how this stuff works. So I'm going to undo the screen sharing. Come on. Let's go back. Screen share, come on. There we go. Okay. Okay, so I'd like to do a couple of demonstrations here. Who'd like to be first as my demonstration client? We probably have time for pretty much everybody. Hey, Stacy, okay, great, thanks for volunteering. So I'm gonna just pin you to the video here. Yeah, that's great, then we can see you, good. So, hi again, welcome. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna just take any topic you like, okay? And we're gonna see if it's possible for us to, yeah, Tonia's up for it too. Yeah, everybody should be up for it. I think we'll have time to do, yeah, several of these, okay? So pick any topic that you'd like to have be, anything you'd like to have be better in your life, Stacy. And what we'll do is I'll walk you through the steps of clarifying how we want it to be instead of how it is, okay? And then we're gonna see if we can find, and we will find, the barriers to being able to step into a new reality that is the expression of what it is you'd really like it to be, okay? So which area of your life would you like to have be better?
Okay, I'd like to stop worrying about what might happen in the future.
Okay, that's a powerful intention and a very good one. So this is optimal topic for this demonstration. Yeah, so just so you know, this muscle testing thing we do, we call it intuition testing also because it helps us get access to our intuition through the body's kind of innate knowing. Yeah. And we have one rule in this IGO work, only one, and that is muscle test everything. So you'll be seeing me do that, and I'm going to hold it up so you can see the strong and the weak responses as we test, okay? So that'll be for everybody's benefit. Okay, so if you were to formulate your intention into a statement about not worrying about the future, what would that look like if you painted a new picture and you were living in a new reality where that was true? What would it look like?
Ooh, so I would there'd be trust. I would trust myself and trust that it's all going to be okay. And there's just more peace in my life, more acceptance, not so much reactivity. Just sort of life is just easier and more peaceful.
Okay, good. And so say, this is how it is for me.
This is how it is for me. Is that?
Yeah, and I'm going to test.
I got it. Okay.
Okay, weak response. That means you're not coherent with that yet.
Okay.
And you know that from your experience, because it's not the parallel reality that you'd like to be living in. Yeah, the quantum physics says we've got this infinite number of parallel realities. That's the next one you'd like to be living in. And that's what we're going to see if we can create, because we want to just simply remove the barriers to actualizing that reality, manifesting that reality in your life. It's kind of like opening the door to a hallway and then opening another door and stepping into a reality that's very much like this one, same living place, all that kind of stuff, but free of the worry and anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've tested it. I want to do what's called a provocation test. And that is, I want you to just think about your upcoming future and just see whether just having the intention is enough. Usually it's not, but we can check. If you just imagine your upcoming future and just see if there's still things that you're kind of worried or anxious about.
Well, yes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So after we clear what's causing the worries, then we're going to have a situation where we'll redo this same provocation test we just did and see how different it is. Sound fair?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to test now to see how many of these disruptive energy barriers there are that are causing these worried, anxious thoughts, right? And it's now there may be more than I'm testing, but I'm testing for the essential ones that we can get at in this demo, right? Like the cornerstones, like the building blocks, right? And there's 1, 2, 3. There are 3 primary ones, and those are the ones we're going to go after now. Okay. Now, there's a very simple way to access these. We don't have to do some long cognitive therapy type of, oh, it's because my mother did blah, blah, blah. No, we don't have to do any of that kind of stuff. All we have to do is use the quietness technique that we just did before, go into the quietness and do that a few times so that we're really kind of familiar with the quietness. And I'll guide you through that again in a moment. And then we just tell the body, show me the first energy that's causing all this worry and anxiety stuff. Okay? Because those are our barriers to living in the intention that you stated. Right? Okay. By the way, there's only one form of trust, and that's trusting yourself. Because if you feel you can't trust somebody and you go against that, you know what happens. You regret it later. Yeah. For sure. You've had plenty of those experiences. So when you trust yourself and you don't trust somebody else, you got to trust that you don't trust them. Right. And you got to base your actions on that and not put your trust in them, not do things that would be to your disadvantage. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. So, pardon me. So, what we're going to do now is I'm going to guide you through what's called the locate technique. This is a technique for being able to find and access the sensation of energies stored in the body. These would be the in technique type of energies. And all 3, 1, 2, 3, all 3 of the barriers that you have are these in technique energies. Okay. So we're going to use the locate technique to find the energy, and it's going to feel like a kind of constricted area someplace inside. Very often they're toward the center of the body, like solar plexus, heart chakra area, throat, belly, places like that. They can be anywhere, but they're very commonly stored toward the center of the body. Okay? So I'm going to guide you in finding it. And then we're going to shift to the in technique, and I'll guide you through the in technique. And what it's going to do is allow us to complete the incomplete experience that's been held there. You remember from the types of emotions chart, that little red dot inside the person's body. We're going to find the first one and then use the in technique to complete the incomplete experience that you've been holding there. Okay. So it may feel a little bit intense, but you'll be able to handle it. The part of you that's been hesitant to go there and experience that is the 3-year-old inside of you who used to get emotionally overwhelmed all the time. But you're not 3 anymore. You've got enormous capacity to feel, even though it's pretty underutilized because of the conditioning being there. Okay. Okay, so here we go. So go ahead and close your eyes. And those of you who are watching either live now on the recording, or if you're watching the recording, you can follow along if you like. So as you sit and just sit comfortably with your eyes closed, let's just talk about what you experience. Obviously, you can hear the sound of my voice and perhaps other sounds in the environment. You can feel your body sitting on the couch there. And the other predominant thing that you experience is thoughts coming and going in your mind. I'll give you a few moments to just notice that thoughts are coming and going. And pretty much everybody has typically a good stream of thoughts. So you probably had several already. Yeah, yeah, sure. And the interesting thing is that the thoughts are occurring in a background of silence. It's like when we had that slide up with the partly cloudy day. It's a good analogy here. If you look up at the sky on a partly cloudy day, you can see the thoughts. You can see the clouds and you can see the sky. And the way you see the sky is simple. You just look off to the side of the clouds and there it is. And it's there all the time in the background. It's always there. And this is analogous to thoughts occurring in the mind. The thoughts occur in a background of silence. And the way we can experience that silence is we just look off to the side of the thought and notice that there is this environment of silence or emptiness in which the thought is occurring, and that it has to be like that. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to hear our thoughts. And so in order to experience the background of silence, which is what we want to do now, is we notice the thought, then we look off to the side of the thought and notice the background of silence or emptiness. And one of the next thoughts that you have, give that a shot. Try that. Now, it's not difficult to do, but you don't stay in the silence for a long period of time because other thoughts will come along and disrupt it. Oh, it's just Tonya losing the connection and coming back, so that's fine. So as you notice the quietness, another thought will come along and interrupt the quietness. And that's totally fine because we're not trying to get rid of thoughts. We're just noticing the environment in which thoughts occur. And there's a reason for that. That's because as you notice it again and again, each time a new thought comes, look off to the side and notice the quietness again. And you won't stay in it for a long time because other thoughts will come along and interrupt it, just like I said before. And that's totally fine. We're getting a sequence of little tastes of the quietness rather than some one long experience of it. And that's totally fine. So I'm going to give you a few moments to have several of those experiences. Look off to the side, notice the quietness. Another thought comes along and interrupts it. That's fine. You just look off to the side of that thought. Notice the quietness again. And you just keep doing that. Now, as you do that, your experience of that silence becomes a little bit richer in your overall experience. You start to feel more kind of at home there. Now, it's a little bit different than what we normally do. Normally, we use our awareness to experience things, objects of perception, like thoughts, feelings, visual perceptions, all that kind of stuff. But now what we're doing is allowing our awareness to notice itself. That's what that quietness is. That's your awareness. It's the essential part of you that you use for experiencing everything. So I'm just muscle testing that you've had sufficient experience of it that we can move on to the next step. Yes, muscle test is yes. So the next step is that now we're ready to simply tell our body, tell your body, by having the thought, show me the first in technique energy that's causing this frequent worrying, anxious feeling. And pretty much immediately, the body will show you some tight, constricted place inside.
It's my sternum. It's like my sternum area.
In the sternum?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, so you're already feeling it. So notice that there's a sensation there. And then if you bring your awareness a little bit closer to it, you'll notice that there's a whole field of energy there. And in the field, there's a place where the energy feels more intense than elsewhere. If you allow yourself to, you can feel that. It's typically toward the center.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? You get a sense of that?
Yes.
Okay, good. So the instruction now is very simple. What you do is simply allow yourself to notice that central, strongest part of the sensation of the energy that's there. You don't try and make it go away. You don't try and run away from it, which is the typical deeply conditioned habit. You stay there, allowing yourself to notice that central, strongest part. You don't try and do anything to it. You just simply notice it. Now, when you do this, the initial experience is that it will cause you to feel that the energy seems stronger than usual. Now, it's not actually stronger than usual. You're just allowing yourself to feel fully what's really there. And you don't usually allow yourself to do that. So it seems stronger just by contrast with trying to suppress it all the time. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so gradually, the intensity level will start to soften and become less because you're simply allowing yourself to experience it and start the process of completing the incomplete experience that's been held there, because when it happened, you couldn't process the whole thing at the time. That nice sigh was probably because the energy started to reduce in intensity a little bit. Is that right? Yeah, this is very common. So as you feel it, it will gradually become less intense, and sighing or having some expression like that, sometimes yawning or whatever, sometimes these things are an indication that some release has taken place, which just did. That's great. So as you continue to notice the central strongest part, each time it softens, bring your awareness a little bit closer to it. And what we want to do is to find exactly the right distance from the energy where you can really feel it, but it's not so close as to be overwhelming. So when you're first doing this, sometimes it takes a little practice to kind of get the sense of that. And if it feels too intense, you can just take a couple steps back or just back up a little. And if it doesn't feel very intense, then get a little closer. The principle is we want to really feel the essence of this energy, and we want to feel it so thoroughly that there's nothing left to feel. So each time it gets softer, get a little closer. Now it's a gradual process. So we're just going to be with you here for a few moments or minutes, we'll see, and just allow you to experience this so that it can gradually soften more and more and more until there's nothing left to feel. And it's totally fine if it takes a while. There's another sigh, that's good. More releasing. And you just keep going until all the energy is gone. And when it's gone, you'll know, because there won't be anything left to feel. And at that point, you can open your eyes. But take all the time you need. There's no rush.
Yeah, so as I got closer and closer to it, I noticed my some pressure behind my eyes and some tears coming and throat contraction.
Are the tears still coming?
No.
Yeah. So it's just a temporary experience of the level of intensity was high, pushing you into collapse into the energy and be slightly overwhelmed by it. So you cried a little. That's okay. Then you adjusted yourself and now you're okay. Yeah. This is part of the learning curve of how to adjust how close or far away from the energy you are. Most people don't even know that adjusting that is possible, but it's simple. You just have the intention to do it and it happens.
It seems to have dissipated. I think it's gone.
Wonderful. So I'm going to just muscle test to cross check. This energy is now gone. Terrific. It's gone. Very, very good. So that's how you do it. Okay. Now, everybody has two databases of these energies. The in technique energies are those constrictions, localized ones. The out technique energies, I didn't explain it when we were on the chart, but they radiate out into the environment and they create a kind of cloud or aura of energy. And the problem is we're inside that cloud and we're looking at the world through it. So it's kind of like having dark glasses or colored glasses on. You see the world through the tint of that emotion, right? So if somebody upsets you, makes you angry, and you're in that field of anger, and somebody else comes along who didn't upset you, just a friend, and they say, "Oh, Stacy, how are you doing?" You say, "Don't talk to me," because you're seeing the whole world through the anger energy, and so you kind of see it everywhere. So that's the kind of experience I'm talking about. It's like even if you don't express it, you feel it. Yeah. So this is the this is the process, and we tested that there are 3 of these energies causing this anxious, worried feeling. So we have 2 other ones to do. How about we take the time to just go ahead and handle them right now?
Yes, I'm just a little confused about what those energies are then, because we just cleared, I said worry about the future, right? And then we cleared an energy, but I'm not sure. And that was supposedly one of the energies underneath being scared about the future. So what energy did we just clear?
Well, the expression fears about the future could mean lots of different kinds of fears.
Yeah, I mean, I just did the blanket, fear
Right,
about the future.
right,
That's the one
right.
I just cleared. But
Right. Well, let's retest. Maybe you got them all. Okay. So what Stacy did so far handled all 3 of the energies that have been creating this anxious, fearful feeling. No, there's still 2 more. Right. So we may not have the language precise for describing them, but your body knows what they are.
okay.
Okay. Thank goodness. Okay, so good. So let's find the second one. And the way we find the second one is exactly like the first one, because it's exactly like it in the sense of it's an in technique energy. Okay, it's one of those constricted feelings, tight knot or ball of energy inside. So we'll find it in the same way. So again, look off to the side of your thoughts for a little bit and reacquaint yourself with that background of quietness, you actually were already just there, because when you finished that first in technique energy, the place you ended up was in that same expansive, quiet place.
So it's in my chest now.
Okay, good.
Chest.
Yeah, okay. So notice that there's a field of energy where you feel the sensation. That's what's producing the sensation. And notice that there's that place, typically in the center, where it feels more intense than elsewhere. Can you sense that? Yeah. So do just like you did before, which was perfect because we got it. Yeah, you got it. That means you were doing it right. So just notice the central, strongest part of the energy. And that's all you need to do. Just notice it.
I feel pretty relaxed. It's gone.
Excellent. Excellent. You up for doing the third one?
Mhm.
Okay. So again, just simply, you already have access to the quietness. So just tell your body, show me the next one.
It's down in the lower part of my belly.
Okay. So again, notice that there's a field of energy there. And go ahead and allow yourself to notice the central, strongest part of the energy field, just as you've done on the previous two. And as it gets softer, get closer, just like before. You're doing great, by the way. And just so everyone's aware of it, some people are following along, that's fine. But as the energy gets close to being completed, there's a process of the experience changing. There's a tendency for the energy to start to kind of dissipate and fade away. Some people describe it as kind of being like the fog burning off in the morning sun. And so the energy dissipates, it gets kind of more diffused and just sort of melts and fades away. And at the end, all the energy's gone and there's just the quietness there. And that's how you know that it's completed.
Yeah, that's how it feels. It feels pretty quiet right now.
Okay, great, great. So I'll just cross test to see with the muscle testing. All three of these energies that have been generating the anxious, fearful feelings for Stacy, these are all now completed. Yes. Hey, good job, girl. Very good. So now we're going to do that provocation test that we did in the beginning. What I want you to do is think about some of these things that you've been kind of worried about and see if the worry feeling is still there. It might actually feel kind of odd to not feel it if it's not there, because you've been so used to it being there.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's completely gone, but it's definitely, I'm not feeling as anxious as I was feeling today.
Okay.
Definitely feeling a lot more relaxed.
Okay, that's great. Well, we weren't necessarily attempting to get every single barrier, and we wanted to get the three primary ones, and it sounds like that was successful. Because
Yeah,
if you're feeling that much better, that means that was successful. So good job.
thank you. Thank you.
Yay. Good job. Very good. So if you want to continue and get rid of the rest of it, because of what you just experienced, all you have to do is replicate what you just did. Keep asking the body for the next one. There is that other technique called the out technique, and we're not going to demonstrate that now, okay? But you have just enrolled in the Extraordinary Coach Training Program just in the last few days, and you're in the process of taking the Freedom Practice training. And in that, you've, I'm sure, already been trained in how to do that technique. So you already know that. That's good. So if as you're exploring, completing the energies that have been causing the anxiety and worry, you come across it, you can muscle test now, and you know how to do that. And you can muscle test for whether it's an in or out technique energy, and then go ahead and just do whatever it says. It's so wonderful to be able to access the body's wisdom, and just, it's great that the body knows what you need.
Yeah, thank you. I just have one clarification. I'm not clear. so, so we're not needing to get to those specific energies. We're just, mine was my worry about the future. And so we just kind of stick with that. We don't need to worry about what we don't need to be concern ourselves with what the more specific energies are underneath that worry about the future.
You can do that. You can be very, very specific. And sometimes that's really important or valuable when you're attempting to get aligned with a certain very specific intention. Right? So you certainly can do that. And fortunately, we have the muscle testing, and you can muscle test whether you've got the right intention, whether it's specific enough, whether it's too specific, whether something needs to be added or changed. You'll learn about that in phase 2 of the training, when you learn the details of how to do the protocol for working with other people.
Okay, cool.
And that'll greatly enhance your ability to work on yourself as well.
Great.
So the first phase of the freedom practice is about learning the basics, learning the in and out technique, also learning the quietness and locate techniques for being able to locate the energy, and then also learning the muscle testing. Those 5 things are kind of like at the heart of doing this work, and they're essential. So that's why we have that training as the first training of all of our programs now. The coach training is like that. We have a program called Extraordinary Relationships, and its first module is the freedom practice. And that's true for each of our series of seminars on different topics in life. So this is great that you're already on board and already going for it. Enjoying the trainings?
Yes, so much. Thank you, Tom. Yeah, a lot.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Really enjoy them.
Really, that's terrific. Well, it's great to have you on board. We'll love having you part of our team. Fantastic. Okay, so what we're going to do now, go back to the screen share for a moment. So this Extraordinary Coach Training Program that I was just mentioning is the program that we have for helping you to become a great person, for helping you to become someone who trusts and acts on their intuition much, much more consistently, and who doesn't act on your conditioned, ego-based and emotionally pain-based thoughts. You act on those less and less. And as I showed that one slide of what an optimal situation is where we have 100% practical, 100% intuitive influences on our decisions, and 0% from our ego and emotionally pain-based thoughts. So I wanted to just give you a very brief explanation about the Extraordinary Coach Training Program. It has 3 phases to it. And as I've mentioned, it starts with the freedom practice. In the freedom practice, you're working with your most important client, which is yourself. And then we have the IGO protocol for coaching other people. And this only requires about 4 additional videos to learn the basics of working with other people. And then you can start practicing coaching with other people. And we have a bunch of people in the coach training. So they're almost always people you can practice with, kind of hook up and buddy coach and coach each other and get some practice. That's very good. And then the 3rd phase of the training is called the Trauma Way program. Trauma Way is just a little branding name I made up. This is about learning how to reduce the severity of all the PTSD symptoms down to 0. Now, that's a very important thing. Actually, how is it that I know how to do that? That's because back in 1993, I got shot in the chest by a deranged stranger, and fortunately didn't kill me, thank goodness. And but it did cause me to have PTSD. And I didn't believe that PTSD was incurable, so I started looking for some way to cure myself. And it's when I had the insight that everyone has this experience of being emotionally overwhelmed many, 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 many times when we're little, and develops the kind of hatred for emotional overwhelm, and therefore learns to suppress it and avoid it. When I learned that, I realized that I had to practice doing the exact opposite, which I did. And from doing that for quite a long time, I've discovered and learned all the details about how to do this. So a training like this would normally cost about $3,000 or more, but I want to get as many people on board doing this work as possible, because particularly with the pandemic, people in the medical field, but also just people in the general public, lots and lots of people have a lot of trauma, grief, problems because of all the stress and trauma and unhappiness that the pandemic is causing. In addition to that, there are all kinds of other sources of the trauma: military combat, crimes, natural disasters, household abuse, all kinds of abuse. So this program is a program for learning how to resolve all of the symptoms of PTSD and bring the symptoms down to 0. Now, I was able to find and do that for myself, and I haven't had I had all the PTSD symptoms really bad, but I found it and did it myself, and I haven't had a PTSD symptom in 25 years. It's been completely gone. So this notion that PTSD is incurable, I'm living proof that this is not the case, that it's totally curable. You just have to learn how to do the exact opposite of what everybody on the planet is deeply conditioned to do. So the cost is low, because I don't want to have finances be an issue for anybody to cause them to not be able to take this training. So I have a huge discount, $2,500 discount. Never done this before. And it's only $497. And there's some special registration bonuses. So for the first 10 people who register are going to get 2 one-on-one private sessions with me. The next 20 people who register will get 1 one-on-one private session with me. And anyone who registers after these first 30 people, but before October 1st, will get a one-on-one coaching session from one of my master coaches. So this way, if you get your act together and get registered, you'll definitely get a one-on-one coaching, which will be very valuable for you. So to register now to get the early bird bonus, write down this URL, tinyurl.com/24 small letter H 59 small letters RCA. Now that's one of these tiny URLs that will take you to the right page on the website where you can register for the Extraordinary Coach training. So you want to either type that into a new tab in your browser or write it down. And the URL will also be on the description page of the YouTube video where I'm going to upload this video. So I'm going to leave this screen up for a few moments while you do that. And I can hear your voices. So if anyone on the call has any questions, you can go ahead and ask them by voice and I'll hear it. Okay.
Hey, Tom, it's Chris. Can you hear me?
I can. Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Doing very well, mate. Long time no see.
Yeah, good to see you.
Hey, when is this kicking off?
Well, it's what's called evergreen. That means that the classes are recorded, and so you can actually start at any time and go at your own pace.
Awesome. And I missed the first. I missed the first part of the recording.
That's all right. We're going to record it and put it up on YouTube. Drop me an email at tomstonehse@gmail.com, and I'll make sure to send you the link to the YouTube video so you can see the whole thing.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I think I'm keen. I'm going to give this a go. It's been a while, so I need to do a bit of a refresher. So
no problem. Great to see you, man. It'd be great to have you on board. Are you the Chris Prime that I know from New Zealand?
It's the one. Yep.
Fantastic. Great to see you. And you know, we're going to be opening. Yeah, it's great. Didn't recognize you with the beard.
Yeah, changed a lot in 10 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah, great to see you. So we're going to be opening what are called World Wellness Centers all over the world. And I was actually just thinking of you today as that, you know, when we start doing it in New Zealand, that you could help me with that. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely keen to. Yeah,
absolutely. Great. So go ahead, Tom Stone, HSE, that's for Human Software Engineering. You remember we used to call it that. And hse@gmail.com. Drop me an email and I'll send you the YouTube link as soon as it's up.
Oh no, I'm just going to buy it. No, I'll just go to the tiny link and just.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Fantastic.
It's Tom. It's you, Tom. Okay. Don't worry about it.
Fantastic, man. Great to see you.
Okay, mate. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for joining us. Okay. So I'd like to go ahead and complete the call. I'm going to go back to, any other questions or comments? So delighted to see you, Chris. That's great. All right. Again, thank you, Stacy, for volunteering. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording now, and we'll get the course loaded up to YouTube for make an announcement for the rest of the coach training people. And I wish you all the best. May you live from pure awareness all the time and be able to live and enjoy the optimal expression of your inner greatness. All the best, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Tom.
Oh, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Thanks, Stacy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.